Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. I say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening because we have people from all over the world listening and watching this webinar today, or you may be watching the recording because, IT happens, and we all know that sometimes the best laid plans of being on a webinar live change, and you can't be here live. That's why we record everything that we do so you won't miss out on the amazing guests that we have and the content that we have to deliver to you. I'm excited to be here today with you. As always, I am Laura Steward. I'm your host for today's webinar. I am the Director of Online Channel Events for SaaSMAX Partner Optimizer. I'm a former MSP, so I have a unique perspective on our topic that we're going to be talking about today, and I cannot wait to introduce you to our guest who's returning after the highly successful webinar we did last month. But a little housekeeping before we get started. Any questions that you have, please type them in the Q&A pane, and I will be monitoring them throughout the webinar and introducing your questions to Dina Moskowitz and Rajiv Nathan as we go through the webinar. And we will also have questions at the end. So please, any question that you have, make sure you enter it in so that I can address them as we go through the webinar. Also, at the end of the webinar, we're going to have a brief survey that will pop up for you. And we would love it if you would answer it. Let us know what you think of the webinar. It'll only take you a minute tops, really, to answer the survey, but it helps us bring you better and better and better webinars to serve you, our clients and our prospective clients. So let's get going with our webinar today. And what we're going to be talking about today is we're starting out with what is an ideal partner and the data-driven ideal partner profile. And then we're going to go into what makes a great demo. As a former MSP, I've briefly mentioned to you before that I've sat through stuff and I have a unique perspective on this. After 15 years of running a multi-state MSP, I can tell you that I've sat through wonderful demos, but mostly probably 98% of them were a total waste of my time and the presenter's time. Our goal today is to show you how you can turn that around and close your ideal partner by doing the right great demo. Then we'll share with you some special offers that we have for you and go into Q&A. So let's dive right in and introduce you to our speakers today. Dina Moskowitz, the CEO and founder of SaaSMAX Partner Optimizer, and Rajiv Nathan, aka Raj, startup Hypeman. And you know what? If you're not a startup, don't worry about it because by the end of this, you're going to learn how to think like a startup. So let's say welcome to Raj and Dina.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you for having me back. Appreciate being here. Fully acknowledge up front, everybody. I don't have the strongest internet connection today for whatever reason. So if it gets blippy or anything like that, just bear with us and let it ride, and we'll work through it all.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, when you're doing this stuff live, you never know what can happen. And that's really the perfect analogy for what we talked about last month, where you showed our attendees how to craft their perfect pitch so that they know their right pitch to the ideal partner. And now we're going to talk about how to craft that ideal demo for your ideal partner. And in the middle of that, right, Raj and Dina, we all know tech happens.
Exactly.
Yeah. At a minimum, tech happens in the middle of that.
Yeah,
right, so
and what you want is not to have an excuse as a partner to get off the phone and get off the call and say, whoops, tech problems, I'm going, bye-bye. You want them to want to come back. And so that's what we're here to do, is make sure they want to come back.
Right, absolutely. And also to know that you don't want to waste the MSP's time, your potential partner's time. So if the tech issues do get too bad, you want to acknowledge that and say, hey, let's reschedule this, or is this working for you? So let's dive right in because we have so much to cover today. Let's start with the definition of an ideal partner, because I think this is so critical. And a number of you may have been on last month's webinar and we went through this, but I want you to listen to this next part with a different ear if you were on last month, because hopefully at this point, you've begun to rethink what you thought was your ideal partner. So Dina, why don't you dive in and talk about what makes an ideal partner, and then Raj, why that's critical before you book that demo.
Sure. So when we talk about ideal partner, I want to first bring up that it's the ideal partner company, right? You may have an ideal buddy who works at a partner company and you love working with them. But if that company is not an ideal company that is aligned with what your mission is to get your products to market, they're not as ideal as you think. And sometimes you think your ideal partner is your competitor's partner. But that's not always the case, because number one, that partner might be so loyal to your competitor that they're not going to move for anything. And a lot of times we know that 80 to 95% of partners actually are not transactional and not driving revenue for a vendor in the first place. So just because they're your competitor's partner, it doesn't mean that they're an active or a good partner for that competitor either. So what we try to do is get into the real nitty-gritty of what business attributes does the partner company have to make them ideal for your company and for your products and getting your product to market. And it really is a combination of the attributes that when combined together, we'll say these guys are perfectly aligned with our go-to-market strategy. They have to have the right expertise, because if they don't, then all they can be is more of a recommendation versus a real influencer and a real champion for you. And they also have to be able to implement and have that expertise. They need to be able to sell other solutions that are adjacent to what makes your product good. And so if they're selling adjacent solutions, that means that they already are talking to the right buyer persona, and that they already have expertise in that area. So cybersecurity, if you have a cybersecurity app, you want to make sure that partner is also selling cybersecurity solutions. They're not selling MarTech solutions to a CMO. You want to make sure they have the right business model, so that their how they earn their commission, or how they earn a referral fee, or how they earn revenue from their customer is aligned with how you're going to market, so that what you can offer them in compensation and incentives makes sense to them. If it doesn't, then you're not aligned and they're not ideal. Then, of course, they have to have the right customers, because if they don't have the same ideal customer, then in the first place, you're just not going to be, they're not going to be able to take your product to that customer. That's no brainer. But what that means when I say right customer, the right vertical markets, the right customer size, because selling to an enterprise is very different than selling to a small business or even a medium-sized business. Then the right customer type. So if they're selling only into government, that's different than selling to private. And you want to really consider that. Selling to a healthcare organization or educational institutions comes with a whole other set of criteria and certifications. And it's really important to recognize that those focus areas make a difference in whether or not they align with where your product is going. Then, of course, you want them to be great to work with, and you want them to commit to and make time to working with you. Sometimes we have a company that'll come to us and say, we already work with a big distributor, but the bottom line was that that distributor was forced into the formula by your end customer. And so if you got into a distributor because a customer said so, or a customer said, get in with this partner, that partner hasn't really dedicated their time to knowing you or your product or even bringing it on. They're just taking a commission for nothing because they have a relationship with the customer. And so making sure that they want to work with you, that they're going to dedicate resources to working with you, and that it's a good fit overall. And so ultimately, once that's all put together, that you want them to be driving revenue to you proactively, regularly, consistently, and into the future. So I think that's good. I mean, Laura, what do you think from your standpoint of ideal partner?
Well, I agree with all that. And I'm really curious what Raj thinks about how this fits with when you get to the demo and crafting the right demo.
Well, so I'm sure everyone's familiar with that term, like product market fit, right? But there's like that must exist, which most companies have. but you need to also have product partner fit. And that's where a lot of what Dina was going through there, right? That's how you can determine and kind of guarantee more or less that the person you're talking to or the company you're talking to is the right potential partner, because that's like half the battle right there, right? Otherwise, you're kind of just like just reaching out to kind of anyone and everyone who looks like they could possibly maybe be a fit. And you're wasting probably more than half your time just trying to suss out who should you actually be having the conversation with. And when you're having the conversation with the right person, then it's easier for all the things to click. Now, you still have to have that conversation in the right way, but that whole like qualification of, is this even the right potential partner? Like you've solved for that up front, and you're going to have to actually do way less demos as a result to get the right partners.
Exactly. And, and this slide that we just popped up here is basically what I've been putting our company's blood, sweat, and tears into doing, which is solving whether or not a partner is qualified up front based upon all those kinds of attributes that we were talking about, but in a really data-driven way. And when you can look at a partner from a scorecard view of their business attributes compared to what your ideal partner profile is, it makes it so much more crystal clear that, okay, I like company A, but it's a waste of our time, and I better not put my channel salesperson on them because they're going to not get any results and they're not going to earn any commission. They're going to get frustrated and they're going to leave. Plus, we're not going to drive any revenue. Whereas company Z, who might be new to us, but I know is a great fit for us, we really should treat them like a Glengarry partner lead and do everything in our power to take that company and really bring them on board and make them feel like a diamond, because we, there's a huge opportunity there.
So let's talk about some of the different aspects of what makes an ideal partner. And I'm going to put up a poll that I'd love for everybody to answer about what you think your top partner attribute is as Dina talks about these items.
Yeah. And we started talking about them already, and this is more to recap that, because I want to make sure you're crystal clear on it as you're listening to how to build an ideal demo. We look at those 4 buckets, right? What is the company size, the company business model and persona? How do they make money? What do they care about? What's their expertise? The next thing we look about is their customer alignment with you. So in other words, what insights can you learn about their customer base, and are those the same as your ideal customer profile? The third bucket is, what is their tech stack? And this is really important because if you're a vendor, as many of you are on this call, you are bringing one product to market through partners, and that partner is focused on multiple products. So does your product fit in with their tech stack? Does it make sense? Will it be easy for them to grasp and sell and take on? Or is it going to be out in left field and very much a point of friction for them? And again, competition there. And then finally, what deeper attributes do they have? So this is really interesting to see the results here, that your top partner attribute is solutions that they focus on. And, that's great. And I think most people are that makes good sense. And then when you say you have no idea, that's awesome too, because I commend you for those of you who selected that I have no idea area, because sometimes until you look at the data, you don't necessarily know what's surfacing as the most common attributes that your partners have that allow you to really understand that. That's something we actually do as well.
I think this is really interesting, and Raj, this is kind of a kudos to you as well, because last month when we did this poll, the numbers were radically different. There were maybe 40-something% of solutions they focus on.
That's right.
And there were several, I have no idea, but then it became the size revenue of the company in the vertical market. So it's interesting to see that shift. And Raj, when it relates to what we're about to go into with demos.
I think that means people are listening, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good. So, I think that, we're probably ready for that next slide then, right?
Yeah. So then let's dig into this and then move on to the demo.
Yeah. So this is just really talking toward when you do have that right partner identified up front, your conversion of partners increases substantially. I don't know how many of you look at your own metrics of converting partners that you market to and go after, but we experienced this, and we have a great webinar with the channel chief at LogMeIn for LastPass a few months ago, where based upon the partner discovery that we did based upon their ideal partner profile, actually drove conversion and of them bringing on new partners, and those partners that we drove them by as much as a 40% conversion rate, compared to typically what you see in most companies is more like a 1 to 3% conversion rate, which takes a lot more time. So the fact that they got to a 40% conversion rate and they got to it in a matter of months is amazing. And so we're really, we're great. You know, when you see it that way in those metrics, it's very validating to know that the work that you're doing up front, it logically makes a difference, but it also makes a difference in the metrics, and therefore it's driving sales and revenue. And LogMeIn has been having a great year, so we'd like to take a little bit of credit for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then think about if you had a better demo once you got your ideal partner information and you started presenting, how maybe that 40% can go up to 60% or 70% or higher. Because I know as a former MSP, I got hit up by everybody saying, you know, oh, you know, the ones that even looked perfect, by the time we got to the demo and they did their demo, they didn't even, like, if I tried to take them off script, they couldn't handle it. If I asked them a question that perhaps wasn't in their script, they didn't know how to answer it. And a number of them, I just decided not to go with those companies, even if I thought the product was a potential, because the way they did the demo said that they sent somebody who didn't even understand their product or my buying process, my determination process. So Raj, I'd like to put up another poll that we talked about around the partner demo as you were talking about this.
What I think is really interesting is the typical demo that we all think we should be running is one that is highly ineffective for most potential channel partners. And as we saw on the slide before, right, like that's a direct quote from a head of sales that I've worked with before, who was telling me, like, he was a buyer of something, and he's like, I have been on 6 or 7 demos this week and they all blend together. And he said, what was that one company's name again? And I think that's the absolute last position you want to be in, is your potential partner saying to themselves, what was their company name again? Or what was that person's name again? Right? That's the definition of blending right in, when really what you want to do is be able to stand out to the partner and stand apart from anyone else that they might be talking to, so you can actually carve your spot in their mind and then ultimately get a deal with them where they want to be your partner. And with the poll here, I'm curious to see how people answered this one, because okay, look at this. We got 80% saying the partner demo focuses mostly on their clients, with a couple people saying, I don't know, it changes all the time. That's good if that's where your focus is. If your focus is on their clients, that's where we want it to be. And I'm very encouraged that those are some of the responses that we're getting. I think what's also important to point out is a lot of times we might think like, hey, our focus is on their clients, but then the way we deliver the demo, it actually like runs counter to what we think we're providing.
I'm so glad you said that, Raj, because when I saw the number of people that said focused on their clients, I'd be questioning, and like you said, is it really, or you think it is, but it's not.
And that's, I mean, it's like this, I'll tell you from this large swath of demos that I've seen, I think there is probably like a perception error here. And most demos are like, they actually look something like this. You know, it's almost like Bart Simpson on the phone doing a crank call. The average layout of a call, as I've seen it, and I've looked at like hundreds of calls, is you have maybe, let's say, like a 45 to 50-minute call. The first 5 minutes is spent building rapport, but like it's really bad rapport building. And when I say bad rapport building, I mean, it will be something like saying, so how's the weather over there? Or, my personal / least favorite over the last year, oh, how's the pandemic been for you? Like, I don't know, it sucked. It sucked for everyone. Why is that the lead question we're going with to find some common ground? And I think, that type of introduction, sure, like there's some level of common ground you can find, but it's not the type of common ground that you could potentially find to really build a relationship from the start where they feel good about you as a person. So I'll see a lot of calls start with that up front, like 5 minutes of bad rapport building, and then the person will be like, okay, great. Let me tell you about what we have here. And then they'll go into this like 40 minutes of what I just call like screen share hell. They'll go into screen share mode and they'll pull up like the admin dashboard of their product. And then they'll go click by click and button by button saying, okay, so this thing here, it does this. If you want to accomplish this, you're going to click this, you're going to go through this drop down menu, you'll select this, right? And it's just like a total snooze fest. The person on the other side is like, if they're paying attention, they are very bored and they're like, when is this going to end? But most likely they've like stuffed you into like a background browser tab while they're just like simultaneously emailing or slacking with the team member or whatever that might be, or just doing something else. So you have this long screen share process that doesn't really have a point to it, doesn't go anywhere, where we kind of think on the side of the demoing, the demoer, we think, oh, the path here to showing value to their clients is to show them exactly how it works and all the ways that it would work for their clients. But that's not what we want to do. And I'll get into what we should do instead in a minute. But we go through that 40 minutes of screen share hell to then, at minute 45 or minute 50 to say, okay, so what do you think? Can we get a contract together? Can I put a proposal in front of you? Something like that, which is asking for too much after providing so little. And then you get like the response of, oh, it looks interesting. Let me talk internally and think about it. We'll get back to you in a couple of weeks. We've got a few other priorities right now that are taking precedence, right? You get those kinds of responses that they're almost just like pleasantries, because no one is going to feel comfortable being like, actually, this call was terrible and I have no interest in working with you. So you leave the call feeling kind of good because you're like, oh, they're going to get back to me. They said they'll be back in a couple of weeks, all that kind of stuff. And the majority of them, they just like petter out. They don't get back to you. Or they get back to you on a further delay than what they said they would, or they get back to you and they decline.
Yep. And I noticed that there is a comment in the screen about how they don't talk about and talk to the partner as if they're a partner. A lot of times the person they put on the demo will talk to them like it's a customer, not realizing that this is a partner also looking to have to sell it and basically is in it to drive revenue. And without that insight there's a huge opportunity to bond with that partner and say, hey, when I'm demoing, this is what I do and this is why, and it is, are your customers going to relate to this? Does this make sense in that way? And to treat that partner like part of the family from the get-go, make them feel like you're there understanding who they are to you as opposed to one more potential customer. And Laura, I think you probably can relate to that as well, where talking at you instead of with you, right? And when partnership is all about partnership.
Right. And in some cases with some of the channel people on our call today, their product may be partner focused, but we need to still show value to our clients. Or it may be something that we're using for our clients, but it needs to make our lives easier as a partner. So there is that fine line. And I don't know if you saw it, but I stopped myself a couple of times, Raj. I wanted to go like this when you were talking about the screen share hell. Been there, done that, never want to go back.
Well, and maybe you can just elaborate here, like, I mean, yeah, it's like the choking yourself kind of thing, but really, like, what are you feeling like in that moment when you're getting demoed in that way, where, and like, what's going through your head?
Honestly, what goes through my head is this is somebody whose sole job is to demo the product, but has no clue what it's like in the real world. And my immediate next thought is, hey, can you bring in a sales support engineer or one of your engineers to go through this demo with me? Because I'm going to have a lot more deeper questions than click here, do that, and oh, isn't this cool? I don't care about, oh, isn't it cool? I want to talk about how it's going to make my engineer's life easier, which is going to drive greater revenue points for me, which is going to help us make our clients' lives easier so we don't have to spend as much time there, and the clients are going to love us because we're going to have less problems. But as soon as I see that 40-minute point and click, I'm like, I'm out of there, because it says to me they don't even know anything other than they were trained to do the demo in this order. So I want to go and like just hang up.
Well, I think that actually is a good segue into the slide we have up here. And those of you who attended our last webinar, this might look familiar to you. We talked about it then, and I want to echo the point here, because I think this is the mindset everyone needs to have. Like, don't think like an executive. Instead, you got to think like an entertainer, because the entertainer's goal is to form a emotional connection with their audience. They want that emotional response from their audience. And so what do? They understand it's about them. And they think, if they're going on stage, they think about constructing the set list that's going to generate a specific buzz from the other side, from the audience. And that set list is their guideline for the show. But Laura, to your point, they also know how to feel the energy of the crowd in the moment and go offset, right, or off script, if you will, and they'll have that guitar solo or that freestyle, whatever they might do. Or they'll take an extra couple minutes and just like pander to the crowd because they can feel the energy, right? They know what their set list is, which gives them the guardrails, but they also know how they can break from that set list when the situation calls for it. And that's what you really want in a ideal and in a winning demo, is what your set list is, but that set list also gives you the freedom to improv in the moment based on how the call is going. The other way you can look at this is through this slide here, which again, we showed last webinar, and I just think it's another good reminder. You have the potential customer, which is small Mario. Then you combine that with the flower, which is your product. Those two things together create big Mario on fire, shooting fireballs and killing bad guys. Now, what most companies are doing is selling the flower. They're not selling Mario on fire, shooting fireballs and killing bad guys. That's what you need to be selling, is the version of Mario who's winning the game. And so in this case, when you're demoing potential partner, you want to be conveying how does their client win, and how does this partner win because they're offering it to their clients. So ultimately, the idea here with that think like an entertainer is see and speak from your audience's point of view. So if you're going to do that in a demo, let's talk through like what the ideal demo structure should actually look like, what should it sound like, etc. So what I'm seeing again from most companies is the bad demo that we saw before, which is the 5 minutes of the screen share hell. It is the 5 minutes of the rapport building, the 40 minutes of the screen share hell, and then they ask for the contract. And a lot of times it's even like the wrong person running the demo. This is an entirely like vendor, like you as the vendor, and an entirely like product focused demo. It's not what you want to be doing. Laura, perhaps you can just step in for a second and maybe reiterate the point on wrong person running the demo, because you've had experience with that on the buying side.
I swear that nobody asked the question when they set up the meeting for the demo to say, what is your process? Who's going to be on the call as we go through the demo? So is it just going to be front office staff? I happen to have been a founder of the company who also had the highest level of certifications. So, I used to teach geeks to be geekier. So when you were on the demo with me, it was not just an introductory call. You needed to be prepared for deep engineering level and business level conversations. And but with other people, the person that's initially taking that call may not be somebody at that level. And they may just want like a demo light to say, does it fit? And then bring in engineering staff. And I wish that they would have just asked up front, who's going to be on the call? And are there some things you're hoping to get from the demo so we can focus it for your needs? And I think less than 1% of the time was that ever asked.
And that's an important ask, right? And we come back to making sure it's like you could use Partner Optimizer and do all this good information to get that perfect partner on the call. But then if you don't take the step to say, well, who specifically is going to be joining this meeting? Like you got to make use of the software to your best advantage by understanding who's actually going to be stepping into that call at a tactical level, not just who you reached out to, but are they bringing other people?
Yeah, and what I was going to say is that's the pre-partner optimizer perspective, right? Because if you're actually doing that, you probably used a spray and pray campaign to get the demo set. You probably used a cold calling campaign or whatever it may have been to get a demo set. Whereas if you have that ideal partner profile and you know that this partner is ideal for you, in that first attempt at getting them to a call, you're going to be doing a lot more to make sure that you're talking to the right person and driving that toward a very quality conversation. So that's, part of the ideal demo is getting that ideal partner person and persons on the call from that company, because you know how important that is and you don't want to blow it. And you don't want to get someone who's junior or not really a decision maker who's just, doing their boss a favor to screen it. So it's, that's, I'd say, the difference between knowing and putting a strategy in place about really giving your ideal partners the best possible experience and knowing that who shows up matters.
Let's run through then like how an ideal demo should be run. So the bad demo is the one that's very like vendor and it's very me focused, right? Hey, here's my product. Let me show you my product. Let me tell you why we're a great company. We have all these certifications, or we won all these awards for our programs in the past, right? That's very me focused. What you want to be in the ideal demo, the one that's going to win over and over again, is to be very, very partner focused. And the way to be partner focused is to make this mental shift from running a product demo to a product-led demo to a story-led demo. So what a story-led demo looks like is building good rapport up front. I mentioned before, bad rapport is just like, oh, how's the weather, or how's the pandemic been? Which again, it's like it's been awful for everyone. Good rapport is going to be something like, in my case, for example, like, look at all this stuff I have here that you could use as a conversation point. And if I'm spending, like, if I'm getting demoed and you point out something of interest of mine that's back here, that's going to be a really, like, I'm going to want to have that conversation if the first 5 minutes is spent talking about something I love, right? So one example of rapport is there something in their virtual background that is interesting to you or that could make a point of conversation? It could be, they have a guitar hanging up on their wall. Oh, do you play? Oh, that's really interesting. Or they could have, a band poster, or they could have a picture of their family. Oh, are those your kids? Tell me about them, right? Who's going to not want to start a call talking about the kids that they love? Those are things that help build good rapport up front that form more of a human connection than, again, how's the weather? After you build rapport, this next part is so key. You want to set the agenda for the call. The agenda is doing two things effectively. You are basically providing the structure for what's going to happen over the next 40 minutes to an hour. So that way they're not wondering every 5 minutes, well, what's happening next? But you're also securing buy-in from them that, hey, that is the appropriate way we should be running this call. And what I would recommend as an agenda is you start by asking them some questions, so some discovery or some confirmation of alignment. And then from there, you move into going to your formal like pitch, if you will. What's also good in the agenda is to tease out your next steps up front. So you can say, hey, so the way I'd love for this call to run, I just want to get to know you a little bit better and make sure we're in alignment here. Assuming that all looks good, I want to share more about what our product is and what we have with our partner program and why I think it would help. And by the end, if we see that there is a fit, typically next steps look like blank. And when you say that at the front of the call, it's not weird at the end of the call to figure out what to do next, because you're just referencing back what you've both agreed to before. So you set that agenda, you give them the next steps, they agree to it, and then also make sure you ask, is there anything you want to make sure we add to that agenda? Anything you want to make sure we cover today? So you're making sure that you have mutual buy-in to the process for the call, and you're in a way getting buy-in to the overall sales process if it's going to take multiple steps. So that first part, after you lay the agenda down, you'll say in the agenda, I want to get to know you a little bit better. This is where you're going to confirm alignment with them and confirm alignment with their customers. And you've got all that good data from, if you use Partner Optimize, you've got all that good data at the start. So you have that as your starting point. And what you're trying to figure out here is what are their customers asking for, or what are their customers' pain points that are not currently being addressed, and what, for them as a potential partner, what are the things they are looking to then provide to their customers, and what do they already do, what do they not do yet, and what is a situation that works well for them when they are a channel partner, right? So you want to spend time here, think of it as discovery, think of it as alignment, whatever you want to call it, but think about it as the learn about them portion of the call. And to be honest, this should actually take up, I'd say, like half of your call, maybe slightly more than half, which then allows you to segue into a pitch deck. And I want to just clarify here, because there are a lot of pitch decks that are used but still don't get results. And the reason I would say, and Laura, tell me if this sounds familiar, the pitch deck you see is like slide 1, like photo of company headquarters. And it says like, we have locations in 8 different places around the globe. And then slide 2 will be like, we've won these awards over the years, and we have this partner program. So, we've achieved these levels with our partner program. And then here's our executive team and their combined years of experience. And it's like combined 800 years of experience somehow.
And I'm like, we've already gotten past that. We've already gotten past that. We're here now. This is next level conversation. I don't want to hear that stuff anymore.
Yeah, and it's like, I feel like if you're on the call already, like credibility has been secured. Like if they've chosen to take a meeting with you, they don't need to be like reconvinced that you've won awards, therefore they should be considering you. What you want to do with this pitch deck is really architect a narrative that talks about why their customers are missing something, like in their own puzzle, like why there's a piece missing in their puzzle, why it would be prudent of them to do something about it, why you are the right vendor to provide that puzzle piece, and why they are the right partner to deliver that puzzle piece to the customer. So the interesting thing with this partner deck, when it's partner focused, when it tells a good story, is that you're actually spending most of that pitch deck not actually talking about your product. You're talking up what are the challenges with the customer and why does that matter to your potential partner. When you do that effectively, then it's like, it becomes like almost like a no duh. Oh yeah, we have this thing that solves this gap for both them and for you. And to be honest, there's probably a whole nother webinar here we could do specifically on breaking down the workings of the pitch deck. So I'll save that conversation for another day. But you want to have that good deck, which then leads into a very, very brief product demo. And I mean brief, I'm saying about 5 minutes max, maybe you push it to 10, but all you're doing here is giving them an idea of how a person would use it by not actually, or the value someone would get out of it, as opposed to a step-by-step walkthrough of how they would use it. So you want to really focus this on objectives and results, and know that you have in your back pocket a technical demo as a follow-up. So that could even be like the next step you tease out at the front of the call. You could say, hey, and if it looks like it's a good fit, typically a next step is we do a more technical demo where you'll pull in, the engineer on your team and so, so that way we can talk through all like the product specs. If you do this well, the opportunities will surface organically. they will ask you how to proceed. Instead of you asking them for a contract that's probably asking too soon anyways, they will ask you, what should we do about this? Or how do we proceed from here? And that's kind of the format of the ideal demo. I do just want to spend another minute talking about like how you do that actual product demo in terms of being able to deliver the value. And with that, so I'll give you an example. Most often what I'll see is like what I said before. You pull up the screen share and then you do this forest preserve like tour of everything that your product can possibly do with literal like button by button walkthroughs of it. And what you want to do, and particularly if you're selling in a product that has kind of like dual users, so there's like a back end user and a front end user, you want to do what I call the reverse demo. So like a good example would be a company I've worked with in the HR industry. They sell an HR technology, specifically around improving employee benefits and like as part of the perks program that employees get. So what a lot of companies do is say it's like a year anniversary, a 5-year anniversary for an employee, or maybe they hit a milestone of some kind. It's like, hey, pick from this catalog of boring gifts. You can get a keychain with our company logo on it. If you've worked here long enough, you can get a blender or something like that, right? Or a vacuum. Like my wife, actually, her 10-year anniversary, she got an umbrella with the company logo on it, which is like, oh, that's the best you can do for 10 years. So what this company offered instead was, hey, why don't you reward your employees with experiences? Depending on like the tier they've reached, whether it's something small or something big, like small, it could be like, maybe like wine tasting in their city, all the way up to, let's say it's their 10-year anniversary or greater, or they hit a huge sales milestone. Why not let them decide they want to go hiking in Machu Picchu or go scuba diving off the Great Barrier Reef? So the idea of rewarding them with experiences instead of just goods that expire quickly.
Dina, are you getting some ideas?
Oh, I've got a million ideas. For you, Laura, especially.
So the way they were demoing, which was a very like product focused demo, is they had their end person on the phone or on the call, and they'd say, okay, so let me open this up and show you how to set up a reward. Okay, so you're gonna go in here. We have this catalog. You decide what experiences you want to make available. You decide your reward tiers, etc. And then to set up a reward, you do this, and you do this, and you do this, and you do this. And that's not conveying value at all. So in the reverse demo, the one that's very like audience focused, we say, let's pretend I'm an employee at your company and it's my 3-year anniversary. And you know what? I got in today and I already have like an email in my inbox from my manager being like, hey, we love working with you. Congrats on your 3-year. And then look at this. There's this email here that says you've been here for 3 years. Let's celebrate. Oh, this is so cool. I click into this and look, I get this whole catalog of experiences I can choose from. Oh my God. Do I want to do wine tasting? Do I want the private yoga class? Do I want that chef to come over and cook a private meal for my family and I? Oh, it's great. I can pick from all these things. Well, you know what? I'm really into cooking, so let me pick that private chef meal. So I select that, and then all I have to do is just schedule when I want it, and I talk to the concierge, and it's all set up. This is perfect. And then 3 weeks later, I have that experience, and you know what? For the rest of my life, I associate that positive experience with my company. I'm going to keep working here for the next 3 years, 6 years, 10 years, right? That's a fundamentally different way to demo the product than saying, let me show you how to set up a reward. And that's delivering value, right? And that whole thing you can do in a couple minutes.
It makes such a radical difference with the perspective, and having asked up front how technical it needs to go, it doesn't even matter at this point because you're showing value versus features.
Well,
yeah, and I would, and Laura, go ahead, Dina.
I was going to say, you're also showing that partner that you genuinely care in your partners and that you invest in them from the beginning and that you're aligning and want them to be successful. So then they feel more vested with you in committing to move forward too. You give and then you get.
And two things I want to add to that. One is, so Laura, you mentioned earlier, like if for someone like you want the technical demo. It's also why I recommend you send an email before the call saying, and you actually give them the agenda in that call to say, does this look good to you? You know, I was just thinking we'll do a high level overview of the product today or tomorrow when we meet. Are you okay with that? Or do you want a more thorough walkthrough? And then you would reply and say, actually, I want a thorough walkthrough. And then I would know, you know what? Okay, I need to pull in so-and-so into this conversation. Because if we're mutually bought into a process, then we're more likely to have a positive end result for both of us. The other thing I wanted to touch on is that when you do that, you know, that partner-focused pitch deck combined with the brief demo, while you're doing that, or when you get to the end of that, you can literally say to the partner, and this is exactly how you can demo it to your customers. It's that easy. And now you've given them the path of least resistance, essentially. It's not going to seem like a heavy lift to integrate your product into their overall offering. Let's talk about why does this actually work? The results show that it does. You know, I've implemented this demo process at many different companies, and it gets results. You know, the ideal demo gets the ideal result. Like you end up smashing your quota, you end up doing a whole lot more in revenue production as a result, and you beat your goals. So like the bottom left and the top right that you see there, that's Brittany and Tim. Those are both people who were at that HR tech company I just referenced in that story, and those are the kind of results that they were getting, right? Like Tim there, he just left the company a couple of weeks ago to go lead a team at a new company. He was given a role of leading a sales team, and he was like, "Hey, I'm walking away. I did 8 million in 2 years as the top producer, and I'm actually leaving another 4 million on the table in near finished deals before I leave, or that are going to be closed after I leave." Right. So I'm telling you, like, this stuff that we talk about today is not like fluff. It's actually like, it's very healthy stuff if you want to execute a really successful program. You know, last month or a couple months ago, we talked about how do you just get them to take the meeting in the first place. Once you've secured that meeting, how do you make sure that you're able to do this in a repeatable, scalable way where you're having success? And as a result, you're not having to talk to the volume of partners you talk to greatly shrinks because you're talking to the right people, giving them the right demo, which is giving you the right results.
Exactly.
So we are at Q&A time, and Dina, why don't you talk about, while I'm going through and checking in on all the Q&A that's out there and people are still typing them in, we have some special offers both from SaaSMAX Partner Optimizer and from Raj, the Hypeman.
Yep. Yeah. Well, firstly, Raj, it was great to have you back. And I hope that people take advantage of your special offer because it's so insightful, right? And there's no reason not to take advantage of it. He's just, he's so talented and looks at things in a different way, and having other people's perspective on how to tweak and improve is something we should always be seeking out. SaaSMAX's special offer is that is actually pretty cool. If you have, if you take advantage of it, all you need to do is send us 20 URLs, 20 domain names of your partners, ones that either you want to activate and recruit, or ideally ones who are already actively your partners. And we'll give you back their profiles so that you can see what they look like from a data-driven perspective and be able to use that in your campaigns and use that in your future partner discovery, in your activation and how you talk to partners, and really bring your stakeholders in so that you can all get on the same page about what are your ideal partners' profile. So hopefully you'll take advantage of that, and feel free to email us per the below contact, partneroptimizer@saasmax.com, or feel free to send me a note on LinkedIn and I can respond to you again with that link. And Raj, go ahead.
And then on my side, what I'm going to send out to everyone after this is a whiteboard walkthrough of that ideal demo process. So I'll first show you the bad demo process, I'll elaborate on it, and then I'll show you on a whiteboard the ideal process. So basically take the conversation today and then shrink it down to a 5-minute video that's just like boom, 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 boom. So it'll be super easy for you to just take that and say, okay, let's map this to our process now and make some improvements.
All right, cool. So I have several questions that have come in, and one of the first ones that we have is the demo, can it be the first interaction, or is it typically a second or third interaction with a prospective partner?
Really good question. You'll have to feel it out for your specific partner conversations that you're having. I will say you do have permission to push that, that traditional screen share product demo to a second call. A lot of times you can have a lot of success if you learn about them and then go through that deck and then use that to say, so why don't we use this as a good jump off point to schedule a follow-up call where I can give you the walkthrough of the product, and you can bring on whoever you need to on that call, who's going to want to take a look at it as well. So it's not a one size fits all, but yes, you do have kind of the permission and the domain to say, you know what, for our processes, it makes more sense to parse these out into 2 separate calls.
Okay. And a leading follow-up from that is trying to figure out, reading what the person has written here. You're in this hopefully ideal, preferably not bad demo call with a client. I'm paraphrasing several different things. Are there some keys that would give you that it's going south and you're actually doing a bad demo versus an ideal demo?
Ooh, I like that question a lot. So some indicators would be like, you have to be able to observe, like, are they engaged? Okay, so actually, and this wasn't even on the slide, but like virtual setting, have your webcam on. Ask them to turn their webcam on. They don't have to, but you should ask them if they can. And you can make it like a joke out of it, like, hey, I'm gonna have my camera on. I'm not a big fan of talking to a black screen with only a name on it. It'd be great to talk to another set of eyeballs and a full face. So would love if you could turn yours on as well. And most people are like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. But if you don't have your camera on, it sets the precedent for the call that they shouldn't have theirs on. And so once their camera is on, then you can start to look for like engagement triggers. Like, are they asking actual questions, or are they just saying, yeah, okay? Or are they not even saying anything at all and you're just going? You can also kind of, I don't want to use the word force, but you can encourage engagement by, even as you're doing your deck or as you're demoing, asking specific questions along the way. And 2 questions I would specifically avoid asking, because they are low engagement questions and low value questions, is asking the question, any questions? As well as asking, does that make sense? Both of those questions do not really produce a helpful response. And typically when you ask someone any questions, they're like, no, I'm good. Because it doesn't really create the environment that says, I'm actually looking for a real question and response. It's just kind of like a breezy thing you say just to check in with someone out of courtesy. So avoid asking any questions and does that make sense? I think a much better thing you can do is say, hey, I know I've covered a lot so far. What can I clarify? So now you've acknowledged there's potential confusion and you've asked specifically what could be clarified, which now makes it okay for them to ask questions. So to bring it back to the original ask here was like, how do you know if someone's not engaged? If you can't see them, you'll have no idea. But once you can see them, you want them to be having like legitimate questions coming your way. And those are a couple tips you can do to encourage engagement.
Okay. Besides PowerPoint, webcam, and a screen share of the live product, what are some delivery tips and tools that you would recommend to make the meeting more impactful?
Sorry, that was the question where my internet froze up a bit. Can you ask it one more time?
Okay. Besides PowerPoint, webcam, and a screen share of the live product, what are some delivery tips and tools that you would recommend to make the meeting more impactful?
Oh, good question. I think from your side, if you can make your own, and I know it's dependent on what kind of like work from home setup you have if you're not back to the office. If you can make your own setup behind you, like an engaging visual, that helps because now you're showing some of your personality to them, and they may ask you about what's behind you. Tools wise, I think those are probably the keys that you want within the, whether it's PowerPoint or Google Slides or whatever is fine. Those are what you want to be leveraging in the meeting. I would also recommend you have some type of software that is recording and is helping analyze it. So something like Gong or Wingman, which will record the call, they will capture it, and they will give you reports back on how your call went. Oh, you talked for 80%, they talked for 20. You really want to be in a 60-40% range or 40-60% range. Stuff like that will be really helpful. After the meeting, I think it's really helpful as well to use a tool like Vidyard, where you can just, from your browser, record a video of yourself. So instead of, sometimes you may have like a lot of follow-ups, and instead of just sending like static documents as like a recap, you could instead just record a video of yourself doing a recap for them. And it can be, a 60, 90-second video that's easy to watch and easy to circulate.
Great.
Yep.
And I also think that a great tool is to have case studies in the back, sort of like what you did, Raj, where you explained that whole HR experience thing as an example. So instead of, be prepared for that. One of our partners uses it this way. When you're having this kind of client, instead of just trying to give generic, give some actual examples of success stories.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think also up front, if you have I know we're talking PowerPoint, but if you have in there a slide about the company you're talking to, their logo, what you know about their business, maybe trying to confirm those things, like when we talked about confirming alignment, you can say, we've done some research on you guys, and we found that you're already focused on this, and you're doing this, and it shows that you invested time to know about them and their business, and that you're actually curious and interested and aligned. So make sure in establishing the rapport, you can start with those, the insights you get from the data and from your research, so that you engage them and see it's about them versus about your company again.
Great. And we are almost out of time at this point right here. So I want to thank you both for sharing all of your insights, and hopefully everybody will take advantage of both of the offers that you have. And I know how valuable they are from both of you. So we also have another webinar coming up, this one not with Raj, but that doesn't mean we're not going to bring him back for another time.
We'll bring you back.
And that'll be on June 11th.
Yeah, and this is something we get a lot of questions about, right? That the upcoming event, which is, when people say, well, we're learning all sorts of data about the partner, but do you also have their social intent data? Well, what we're saying is that first you learn if it's the right company. Once you know if it's the right company, then what their company people do and whether you can identify intent to buy or intent to explore a product. That's a great tool to be able to use. And so we're bringing a couple of really experienced people on for a panel to talk about when that's useful and when it's not. So we hope you'll make it to that too.
Everybody, thank you so much for being here with us today. We value your time, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Please answer the survey at the end. Let us know what you think, what other webinars you'd like to see, and if you'd like introductions to Dina and the team or Raj to help you set up your demos, talk things through on a more direct, personal level. We look forward to seeing you next month at our next webinar. Have a great day, everyone.
All right, bye.
Thank
Thanks
you.
again, Raj. Great to see you. Always great to host webinars with you.